Hi there everyone, I hope I find you well. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcome back to the channel, and today we've got something a little bit different. Earlier on today I was very lucky to be able to sit down and have an exclusive chat and interview with John Barber from Rails of Sheffield, and I took the opportunity to put to him a number of questions. So without further ado, and in association with our channel sponsors Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories, let's take a look at what John had to say. So a big welcome to John Barber from Rails of Sheffield. Thank you ever so much for joining us. And I've got a few questions for you, and I'm sure that the viewers as well, really interested to hear from you as well. So the first question, of course, we're going through this pandemic. It's unprecedented times. And I'm just wondering, how has the lockdown affected sales for you?
Well, our business has increased. So although it's a really negative thing that's happened to the world, from Rails' point of view, business-wise, it's really increased. And in some ways, I'm glad that we've been able to provide the mail order service as normal, and even the counter service for a time. And of course, there's been a lot of people isolated, especially people who are retired and find themselves not being able to venture out at all, so at least it's been a getaway for a lot of people who are basically housebound and they've not been able to get out. Doing a model railway is a really good medicine, I think.
I know it's certainly something that some of the feedback I've had on the channel is that people really value the hobbies whilst they're either furloughed or there's no social activities outside of the home. And I guess you've seen such a massive boom for the hobby. And I mean, do you find that there's a lot of new people coming to the hobby, or is it people who have always had a model railway interest?
Absolutely both. I bet you've noticed it even on all the forums that there's. I mean, yours included, of course. It's the attendance and contributions by lots of people seems to be increasing all the time, and we found that with in the shop, and we found that online. And to answer your question, yeah, new people coming to the hobby, which is fantastic. That really is a drive for us, and that's going to keep the hobby in good standing for years to come. And while people are coming into the hobby, it means that people, retailers such as myself and manufacturers, if the money's flowing through, then the investment can continue. It's as easy as that. If we as a retailer depend on people spending with us. If that stops, then we have to radically think about what we're going to do. It's the same with a manufacturer. So this is important, and to get the support from modelers, who will sort of actually get the wallets out and spend with us. It's very, very important. That's the lifeblood of the hobby, really. You can do modelling on a budget, and you can spend hundreds of thousands, or you can just spend, a few £100 or even less than that. And it's important that we recognise there's this place for everybody in the hobby, I think, and it's good that there's a true community. It's a true community spirit, really. I think that it shines through. There is, of course, some negatives. There always will be in any field of life, but what we find in modelling is that we really do see the best of people rather than the worst, and that's great.
And also, I mean, this is your 50th year as well for Rails. And what a year to have a 50th in. But you must have seen so many changes in the industry over those 50 years. And, do you feel that those changes have been for the good? Have you seen such a radical shift over those years?
Yeah, I'm sort of privileged, really, to seeing the highs and lows in the model railway world. I mean, I remember going back to when we had the first shop on Chesterfield Road, number 35. I remember my dad buying when Palitoy who did mainline and airfix were closing down, and he was buying up tons and tons of stock. I mean, we were selling wagons at like 75 pence, and a coach would be about £2. I remember we were selling the Airfix 4Fs and Royal Scots. I think they were £7.95 each, and there were hundreds and hundreds of them. And that was good because people were getting bargains, but it was sad as well because it was the demise of a manufacturer on the market. And then, of course, really, for a long, long time, there was sort of Wren and Lima, and Hornby was obviously the dominant presence, but things didn't really move on for a long, long time. And I think probably the biggest turning point I can remember is really when Bachmann came on the scene, Bachmann Europe, and Graham Hubbard started. I mean, I remember the V2 being announced and things like this, all things that have been rumoured that Mainline were going to do back in the day, and they obviously never came to fruition. But that was a real turning point. And yet now you look back 25 plus years with Bachmann's Europe's history, and you look at the V2 and you think, yeah, it's a good model. But I've seen the new toolings for the new V2, and it's like, oh my God, it's so even in that span of time, this is what's happened. And I suppose now what I'm thinking is how good can models get? How far can we go? And I think that, I don't think we're too far off. Because you go back 10 years and look at models and you think, yeah, there's room for improvement. But I think we are getting to that stage now where we are raising the bar considerably. And it's like, how are these models that are manufactured now going to be bettered in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember when certain models came out and we thought, wow, how can models be getting any better than this? And you look back now and they seem quite primitive compared to models that we're now seeing coming to the market. But at the moment, I want to turn to Rails is quite famously a family-run business, which is becoming quite a rarity in the business world. But how important have you felt being a family-run business is for Rails and continues to be?
Well, of course, you don't plan these things. It just happens that we are, my dad, he had, historically in our family, we had grocery shops. And when he got out of that business, he wanted to keep his hand in with model railways because he'd sold them out the little back stock room at the grocery shop. And so he just rented a shop at Chesterfield Road. And it was only open on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 6:30 till 8 in the evening, and Saturday 10, 5. All the rest of the time it was shut. And of course, we did a lot of toy fairs and things like that for years and years. And God, the thousands of miles I've travelled up and down the country, meeting people. The good thing from that now, a lot of those people I still deal with, even though it is remotely. I see a name, or Tracy will say, "Oh, Mr. So-and-so rang up and said he used to deal with him at Boris at Edmunds Toy Fair," or something like that. And I say, "Oh yeah, I remember." So that's nice. But you don't do as much as face-to-face. Obviously, the exhibitions is the main thing. But yeah, so it's just as a family business, it's just organically. So getting back to what I was saying, so my dad just opened those 2 evenings a week, 2 evenings out of the week, and then on Saturday. And when I left school when I was 16, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I said, "Dad, I fancy opening the shop full time. What do you think?" He says, "Well, you can have a go if you want, John, but I don't think you'll do the business to make a living out of it." I suppose the rest is history. So yeah, but it's nice now. I mean, 3 of my nephews are in it. My wife's in it. My brother-in-law's in it, and a lot of the staff. Even one of my closest friends, Ian. He's worked with me 30 years. So it's really great.
And how quickly was it obvious to you that it was going to be a success? I mean, how quickly did you prove your dad wrong?
Oh, it took a long time. and there was ups and downs, more downs. There were times where I just thought, oh my God, where am I going with this business? And it was good, and I did earn a living, but it was hard work, and it seemed that sometimes the harder I worked, the worse I did. So I was like, oh. But I think definitely as things. I don't know. I got a bit of a following, and that's where I got sort of my customer base and a loyal following. So then things got a little bit easier then. And I think it's obviously with mail order, because when we started doing mail order and not just relying on toy fairs in the shops, that was a real game changer. And then going back to about 2000, of course, that's when we got into eBay as well. And then it's just the whole emergence of, we've been, upgrading the website, more adverts. So I suppose we totally rely on the hobby, though. If we'll probably flourish as long as we keep doing what we're doing and doing it well. Hopefully, we'll flourish. But of course, it's only when the hobby's flourishing as well, and people need us. So we never lose sight of that fact. And I think being a family business, and not looking at the business like off a spreadsheet so much, but actually where values are, and we provide jobs for a lot of people now. With over 30 people working in the business. It's very important, and you do feel responsible because there's a lot of people that you're helping to put food on the table for. It's like any business, and I really, my heart goes out to all these small businesses that aren't doing well at the moment and are struggling and are being, furloughing staff. It's hard times, really, but you've got to keep cracking on, and we've got to do our bit, and so as everybody else.
And recently, Rails has kind of taken the leap into commissioning your own models. You've got the Terrier and the D-Class from Daypole. You've got the Northeastern Rail Car, the Kerosene Castle, both from Hellion. How important has this been to make this leap? And is there anything in particular that's brought about this development? I mean, you've also, some of the announcements are they've blown the modeling press away. They've blown the modelers away, like the improved precedent that
Thank
you
you.
announced a few days ago. Have you felt the need to do this as a business because of changing market conditions? Or is it down to just a case of seeing what you can bring to the market yourselves?
I think it's just seeing opportunities and actually enjoying what we're doing. So we don't. You have to put your business hat on now and again, and look at things from a monetary point of view. But a lot of the time, it's just because we're enthusiastic and we want. The best thing for us is to bring a model to the market that modelers want, and that gives us a buzz, and people ringing up excited, like they have recently with the precedent. We've had people saying, "Oh, it's £220." It's like you're pricing people out of the market. Well, I can assure you they're selling like mad, and we're even shocked at how well they've sold. But we're not just about. Unfortunately, the retail price is the retail price. It's not like we're making any more money or doing any less work or anything like that. It's just a fact of life. And I suppose if people stop buying it, then everybody will have to have a rethink. But at this moment in time, the people will have to get used that we've now broken through the £200 price bracket. But then again, look at the quality, so it is, these models are stunning items, and you go back to like when the National Railway Museum, they did the with Rapido, the Sterling single. I mean, it's a work of art. Try and buy one now. You can't buy one, and if you're lucky enough to locate one, you probably pay double what they were originally selling them for.
Yeah.
So the market has spoken, and it's not like we're not interested in people who are on a low budget. But far from it, and we've got things that we're developing now at the cheaper end of the scale because we don't want to cut anybody out. We want to, we're also looking at the moment, we've currently got in development O gauge and N gauge. It's not just about the double O gauge. We've got some fantastic double O gauge things coming through. Absolutely, I wish I could tell you because I'm terrible for keeping secrets. But I suppose it's one thing I've learned is probably it's better to get things where they're just past EP stage even, where they're very advanced. They're virtually going into manufacture, then do the announcement. I mean, there's one product that, all being well, will be coming out first quarter next year. It's not been announced yet, but we're crossing everything that we can do that, and I think that's going to be a really exciting announcement, and I can't wait. But we're just hanging on, and we'll as we get a little bit further, we'll be making that announcement.
So when you're looking to commission a new model, what is it that you look for in a prototype to decide to make it in model form?
I think we probably try and go for the things that are not massive sellers. We don't particularly want to step on like Batman's toes or anything like that. So we're going for things that we should probably try and look at things that wouldn't get manufactured. The things that you would probably have to buy in kit form historically. Now we're thinking, well, actually, there's probably enough people would want it who don't want to build a kit or have one built for them. And probably we're looking at the eras that have not really been catered for before. Going back to the early stuff, to the Victorian times. It's not really been well catered for, and it is a lot more limited market. But what we're finding is, as with the precedent, there's a lot of interest, and now and again people just want something that's different. Just for a change. We found when it's another topic, but it's similar. When Wren in the 90s shut down, there was a lot of Hornby 00 collectors who traditionally collected just old Hornby 00 die-cast. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm going to start collecting Wren now. And there was a big, massive resurgence in Wren prices and things, and going up, and they become very collectible. So I think now and again a collector just wants something a little bit different, and even if it's what do they call it, Rule 1, even if it doesn't actually fit in with the layout, it's just, well, I've got to have one of those. It's exceptional. So that's where we tend to be, something that people wouldn't necessarily think would get produced. We like that. We like to surprise people.
I know it's something that I remember talking to the Bachmann rep when they brought out the C-Class in that very, very pretty Southeastern and Chatham Railway livery. And it almost felt like for a great many years, manufacturers have been saying, well, we keep telling people there's no demand for it. And yet when they made it, suddenly it opened up this huge new area of the market. And have you found that sometimes when you're announcing what you consider to perhaps be a very niche model, it actually turns out to be potentially more successful than the mainstream catalogue items?
Yes, you would think that. And I mean, with the 812s we're doing with Bachmann, the Macintosh 812, I mean, obviously the Caledonian livery, it's such an attractive livery that you can imagine the advanced sales we're getting on that is far above the black versions. I mean, there's a lot of black locos out there in BR and LMS, and lovely they are. They're a bit boring, so I get shut down for that. But when it's just pure black and nothing else, it's good. But just now and again, a hint of colour is nice, or some lining and things like that. But I mean, South East Chatham livery, Caledonian Railway livery, two fantastic, liveries, and yet there's not much on the market to, I don't think the market would take tons and tons of South East Chatham or Caledonian, but there's certainly room for, some examples of locomotives.
So when you're commissioning models, roughly how long does it take from that first seed of an idea that this is something we want to do in model form to the point that it's in the shop and people are able to buy it? What sort of timescale are we looking at on those?
Best case scenario, I think you'd get, and I think this would be sort of an industry standard, it'd be probably about 18 months. If things don't go right, probably up to double that. So you're sort of talking anything between 18 and 36 months, I'd say. Just depending on, because obviously you go through all these processes. Just at the moment, something we're working on has had a slight hiccup. It's just taking extra time to make it right. But the thing you can't do, well, unless you're a fool, is bring things to market unless they're perfect, because it's just a false economy. So sometimes you just have to wait that bit extra, and that's all you can do. That's why I like the way that Bachmann have recently adapted. They're just doing the announcements quarterly, and then and then they say, right, and in this quarter all these items should come, and people. I was not a fan of the idea at first, but I really am now, because I think from a modeller's point of view, this anxiety they get, oh well, I might put my order in now and it might be 3 years away. It's gone, so people can think, well, actually, I know that's coming in the next 3 months. And it's, and from a retailer's point of view, we're finding we're getting a lot more orders because people are more confident. Whereas it's sometimes, I think a lot of manufacturers have been guilty at some stage of announcing things and it not coming out for a long, long time. which there is reasons, but obviously we as rails, we're sort of lucky that we're not having to put a whole catalogue together. We're not having to put a range together. We're sort of essentially cherry picking the things that we want to do. So all our efforts go into those few items. Whereas I can imagine, putting a huge range together, wagons, coaches, scenery, locomotives, controllers, it must be hard work.
The improved precedent class was recently announced at quite a developed stage. We talked a little bit about this. Has it been really difficult keeping that secret? Because it seems to be at the same point that the 812, the Macintosh 812 is at, and yet you've only just announced the precedent. Has it been really hard to just not let on that this is in the works?
Absolutely. And that's why if we were to meet anywhere socially, Adam and Oliver, my nephews, would keep me away from wine and things because I'm a real blabbermouth, and I really, people like yourself, I want to tell people what we're doing because I'm so excited about it. But the thing is, obviously, with precedent, we're working with other people, so it's unfair to them. You make a decision, you say, right, we cannot tell anybody, and you really have to stick to that. It is hard for me, but I do stick by it. And in the long run, I think it was really exciting, the launch that Hornby magazine did for us the other day. I mean, it was. I wanted to order one myself. It was like, I was that excited. So in some ways, I think rather than announcing something and then it's been 18 months later, we're all for, keeping our gunpowder dry and having a big explosion. It's like, yep, we're announcing it today, and you know what? It's going to be with us in the next 8 weeks. That's where we are now, which is a shame, But I think we've got enough in the pipeline already that we have announced. The other thing as well, we don't want to be seen as one of these retailers who announces loads of things and nothing comes to fruition. What we're finding now is before we announce another product, we'd at least want to have brought one that we've already announced out. Because it's easy to just say, oh, we're going to make this, but you've actually got to bring it to the market as a finished model, which is a lot of hard work.
And sticking with the idea of commissioning new models, has improvements in technology and production processes now made considering prototypes more possible? So you could consider making in model form a model now that, say, even 2 or 3 years ago wouldn't have been on the cards?
Yes. Obviously, the more complex a locomotive, i.e., eccentrics on valve gears and things like that, it's like one more thing to go wrong. It's like when you buy a car, you can have all the gadgets on, but it's another gadget that can go possibly wrong, really. So, yes, we do want to push the boundaries, and we want to, bring complex models to market. But it is, even in this day, still a more risky strategy. Locos without valve gears are a lot easier to assemble, and they're a lot less likely to be faulty. But it doesn't stop us, striving to get these locomotives to market. I mean, there's been a lot. I mean, Andy Forty at Daypol, he's done some fantastic work recently about, the way locomotives connect between loco and tender, without tricky wires or little plugins. This is like a click together, all your wiring's done, for putting the decoder in the loco. Open the smoke box door, little tray comes out, your decoder goes in. These are things that make locos more reliable. And, we're not all as nimble-fingered with things. There's a lot of people who, just don't realise how to perhaps handle a locomotive properly. So you've got to sort of, I think when Andy I had a chat with him once, and he said, what we're trying to do is the things that we get where we get returns, we're trying to think, well, let's make it differently so people can't break them, so that's good. So I think as that sort of side of developments continues, more complexities will come on engines. But I mean, we're talking about things like, I think over the next few years, I think fitted smoke units, but complex smoke units will come on. Lights will be more a part of, sort of having lamps on steam locomotives and things like that. Sound will just keep improving, I'm sure. It's all evolving, and this gets back to what we were talking about before. It's how far can we go before it's like you say, how can we improve these things now?
And that brings us neatly on to the next question, because Rails has recently brought out your own range of DCC decoders. And I wonder whether this rise in technology, is that where you see part of the future of the hobby, and how important has the technology, the add-on technology, become to the hobby?
Very important, and that's why we're doing a lot of business now with DCC Concepts. Their ethos is quality, quality, quality. You go and visit their place in Settle, which I'd encourage any modeler to do. It'll blow your mind. I mean, the people there, how they tell you about, you go in and you get educated. They'll, if you had any fears about DCC, they'll put you at ease. Just making it easier for modelers, coming up with good solutions. So you don't, they're making it so it's just a one-stop shop for your point work, for your locomotive decoders, for lighting, and as I say, we sell a lot of DCC Concepts equipment now, but they're coming up with the technology that will support the modeler, and I mean the decoders. It's not just another decoder. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. You put one of the DCC Concepts, I mean, they've done exclusively for us, the Rails Connect decoders. Get a dirty piece of track, put a not so good loco on it, and put the decoder in it, and it'll run perfectly at slow speeds. It's like incredible, and that just doesn't happen automatically. That's, they've worked on decoders that can, layouts aren't perfect, which a lot of layouts aren't, a lot of layouts aren't, the track's not connected, but the technology they're coming up with will help support all this.
And with the total shutdown, really, of exhibitions and trade shows this year, how has Rails had to adapt to maybe new ways of advertising and also getting product announcements out there? Have you found that you've had to change to completely new ways of doing things? And has this been for better or worse for the business?
So exhibitions, I love doing it. It's like a love-hate relationship with exhibitions. They're incredibly hard work for us. They're very, very disruptive, but you can't put a price on meeting people face-to-face at exhibition. We get a chance to meet customers who deal with us all year round, and you can't put a price on that. That's very valuable to us, and that's why we do it. Historically, it is nice to do, announcements at exhibitions, but to be honest, we find they work better doing them through, social media and, magazines. So it's not been a chore, really, adapting. I am, to be honest, looking forward, as many other people will be, to getting back on the exhibition circuit. And I think when we are able to do it, people will, I think they'll be well supported, because people just want to get back to that side of modelling, and going and seeing a real layout. I mean, you can watch layouts online, and it's good, and you can see a lot of things you wouldn't see at an exhibition, but there's nothing quite like being face to face. And just that buzz of an exhibition hall, and the excitement, when a layout's there that you wanted to see, you can't really reproduce that online, unfortunately. And that's where I think there will be always a place for exhibitions, but luckily we have been able to cope with the circumstances at the moment and do everything online, because I mean, such as yourself, people like yourselves who are supporting the hobby, and creating communities. It's fantastic, and long may it continue.
Now, we've touched a little bit before on the rise in prices. We talked about the era of the £200 model. Do you see these price rises as being sustainable? Of course, you see the other side of things. You see what things are costing to make. But I mean, has the rise in prices affected the amounts that people are buying at all?
We will only produce locos at these prices as long as people are still buying them. and we've found that people are prepared to spend these amounts of money. It's not that we're making any more profit, but it's just that they've got a lot more complexities to them. Liveries that are complex, so they have to go through a lot more processes. But I think a lot of people we deal with are sort of what I call top drawer modelers, where they've sort of got high disposable incomes, which is great. We do realise though that we have to cater for everybody. And as I said before, some of the models we're looking at, are more sort of budgeted and perhaps not as highly complex. So I think Hornby do a good job of that. In their range, they'll sort of look at the sort of medium range locomotives, and they even start with the railroad entry level locos. So that's getting people encouraged to come into the hobby. But I think where we are, we're at the top end, I'd like to say. So as long as people keep buying, we'll keep getting them made. These models. It's as simple as that, and we're finding that, and a lot of these things that we make, of course, are not they are mass produced, but not mass produced in the way that you think. Going back in over time, a loco, they might make 10,000 units of it. Well, the production runs we do are a fraction of that. But obviously, when you're doing a lower run as well, that comes at a price. If you do a bigger run, you get your price down. But a lot of the models we're doing just wouldn't justify doing thousands and thousands. So, you're perhaps getting a model that might be just a one-off and it never gets repeated again. It's like with the Sterling single that we talked about earlier that Rapido did. It's not impossible that it would get done again, but it's probably unlikely, and that's why they're probably going for such a premium on the resale market.
So, final question for you. We talked at the beginning about this being the 50th anniversary of rails starting. What do you see for the next 50 years for rails? What direction do you think the company is going to take?
Well, yeah, I'm hoping I can have a few more holidays. As my nephews, take up the reins, so to speak, in the business. I'm looking, in fact, that they've worked from when they came straight out of school, and they're starting to put their own mark on rails as well now. In the way they want to drive it. We've got some massive announcements, not only for product next year, but for all the things that we're doing. So we have got, we're not just sort of content. We're just sitting where we are. We want to continually push forward and, keep bringing excitement, hopefully, to the hobby. That's what it's all about. I love when we get emails and people compliment on us on what we're doing. It's music to my ears, and it really does. That's what spurs us on, and it's that excitement that really does drive us. It's nice to make money, and that's important because obviously without that we won't be able to survive. But that aside, it is really the thing that really drives all of us in rails is making customers happy and bringing models out that they're really pleased with, or more than pleased with, ecstatic about. That's what it's all about.
Well, I hope you found that video informative, and a big thanks again to John Barber and all the team over at Rails of Sheffield for organising this interview. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you've not already done so, and you can also head on over to Patreon and check us out over there if you want to help support the channel and keep us being able to make the videos that you want to see. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Happy modelling. Today's video is sponsored by Train-O-Matic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Tepic, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian Smith, Brian and Dorothy Mudd, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Trish Bits, Sparky 107107, George Botterini, Andy Finch, Chris Moss, Robert Sears, MD of San Juan Model Company and Grant Line Products, Sam Yates, and Dale Williams. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.